Alright, this is a video that I debated heavily on making. On one hand, it seems like a fresh enough idea and sounds like it'll be fun to make. On the other hand, if my parents ever find my YouTube channel, I'm gonna have to have a long talk with them about the content I make. Anyways, Undertale is a game chock full of fun and enjoyable moments, but something a lot of people seem to like in it were the dates. To me, they were just fun little character moments that allowed the player to grow more attached towards the main cast. So today, I decided to rank every date in the game. Now, if you're wondering how a guy like me who's never been on a single date in his life qualified to rank the quality of these dates, well, I've done about 5 minutes of painstaking research to understand what truly makes a good date, and now I feel like I'm qualified enough to rank these fictional characters' dates. And very apprehensive if my parents ever find this YouTube channel. Please God. Anyways, what counts as a date is gonna be very broad, so feel free to leave a comment saying how wrong I am, or if you yourself are a date master, make your own list, because I really have no idea what I'm doing. Please help me. After looking up the definition of what a date actually is, yes, I'm that unaware, I learned that a date is a social or romantic appointment or engagement, so what I'm going to be counting as a date might get a little broad. I'll be basing most of my rankings on attire, location, conversation, and a couple other minor things here and there. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright, starting at the bottom and working our way up to the top, we got Elvis's date, and oh boy, where do I start with this one? According to a random website I found, a location for a date, whether or not it's romantic, should be nice and at the very least clean. This, however, is not the case, as Elvis takes us to a literal junkyard. And if I took a girl to a junkyard, there wouldn't probably be a second date. Not only is the conversation awkward, but the entire date stems from a misunderstanding, which isn't a good thing, I think. At least she has the decency to dress nice, and giving her advice during the last part of it was actually pretty good, which is some points back from an otherwise negative dating experience. Next up is Undyne's date. Now, like I said before, the definition of a date doesn't specifically have to be romantic. The start of the date isn't actually too bad. Undyne's house is pretty tidy, minus the broken glass, and a sword is also a pretty cool thing to bring on a date, I assume. The initial part of this date is actually pretty good. The only issue, however, is she actively despises you and attempts to kill you twice. Yup, and this one is still ranked higher than Alphys's. At least her attempts to make conversation were pretty nice, with her opening up about why she refuses to let Papyrus join the Royal Guard, and you do become friends with her after. And in the end, nothing says a good date like setting someone's house on fire. Alright, next up is going to be Napstablook's little date. There isn't too much to say about this one. Napstablook's barred from the fancy clothes standard due to being a ghost and not wearing clothes. And even if he could, this does not seem like a romantic date and more of just two buds hanging out. Although Napstablook's house is a little dirty, the events that play out during the date are actually pretty nice. It's just two buds lying on the ground, listening to music as the world around them fades away. You get to lie there and contemplate your journey thus far, the characters you met along the way, and the experience it's been. So yeah, anyways, an average date overall, and the music choice could have been a little better. Moving on, we've got Sans' first date. Now, let it be known at this point of writing my script, all my doubts about making this video have been thrown out the window. This one, for me, gets a few more points than the others because, for one, it takes place in a restaurant, which, in my opinion, is the best place to have a date because food is involved. And I know Undyne's date did have food involved, but this date didn't result in a fire. Except for, well, you know. The lively and decently clean atmosphere of Grillby's, not to mention the decent conversation with Sans, makes this a step up from the others. The only complaint I really have about this is Sans caused ketchup to cover your food, and he did not pay the waiter, which isn't too good. But hey, I like ketchup, so in the end, this one is not too shabby. Alright, the runner-up is gonna be Sans' second date, and now we're talking. A fancy restaurant with actual clean space, and not to mention the absolutely beautiful music. The song It's Raining Somewhere Else actually holds a special place in my heart, but that's just a story for another time. Overall, the dialogue with Sans, the spectacular setting, and the fantastic music make it a pretty good date. The only issues are, well, the fact that Sans implies that he would have killed you if he hadn't made a promise to Toriel, and also the fact that you never actually eat anything. Like, come on. Who wouldn't love to eat a steak shaped like Mettaton's face in a fancy restaurant? Well, besides that, the date is actually pretty good. Alright, time for the best date on this list, and this should not be a surprise to anyone. Papyrus' date is the best in the series, no question. I mean, this date has everything you could ask for. Good setting, Papyrus has a race car bed in his room. Good food, fantastic gourmet spaghetti. Good outfit, that doesn't even need to be said. I mean, look at it. Everything about this date is perfect, and if you need any more convincing, it even has a dating HUD that comes with an egg. There's no question, this is the perfect date. Alright. Well, despite going through all that with my dignity in shambles, I think this video will turn out okay. But we do need to remember that these are fictional characters we're talking about here, and if you're actually going to go on a date with anyone in real life, don't set your house on fire. Thank you for watching. Alright. After finishing Sansei's Part 3 in this kahuna of a video, I decided to step back a bit and do something a little more casual that was also Undertale related, because I know that's what a lot of you are here for. I was pretty stumped for ideas until I remembered that Undertale has some pretty interesting food items, and because I like food, I decided that I should be making a video rating all of these foods from a 1 to 10 scale. I'll be basing my rankings off of the descriptions given by the game and my own personal preference. Now, to save myself the trouble of describing what each number represents, I'll flash a little scale on the screen right now. Quick disclaimer, I will not be making these foods in real life, and my judgments are strictly speculation. I am not a cook. Anyways, there are quite a large number of consumables in Undertale, and although some of the healing items, like the bandage and the bad memory, aren't actually food items, I'll still rank them because why the heck not? Because of the large number of items, I'll be going decently fast with my rankings, so without further ado, let's get going. Bandage. It's apparently been used several times and is surprisingly not the grossest thing on this list, but I still wouldn't stick it in my mouth. 2 out of 10. Monster candy. It tastes like licorice, but it also doesn't for some reason, and it needs to make up its mind. Licorice is average though, so 5 out of 10. Spider cider. And there's something more disgusting than the bandage. I don't think there's anyone on the planet willing to try a liquid made out of spiders. 1 out of 10. Spider donut. The batter contains spider cider in it, and as much as like donuts, I'm not touching it. 1 out of 10. Butterscotch pie. Fun fact, I've actually eaten a cinnamon butterscotch pie before, and it's pretty amazing. 10 out of 10. Snail pie. Oh my gosh, why is this a thing? I know there are people who actually like eating snails, but in pie form? Who knows? Maybe the crust would be good. I do like pie crust. 3 out of 10. Snowman piece. We could look at this and rate it based on the taste of snow, but this item specifically states snowman piece. And thinking about it, the snowman is a sentient being, and if you eat it, you would essentially be eating monster flesh. For that implication, I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 10. Ice cream. I'm a big ice cream fan, so this one gets quite a few points. It gets even more points because ice cream has a compliment on its wrapper, which is pretty nice. There are also 21 different flavors, which is also pretty amazing. 9 out of 10. Bicycle. It's essentially just a regular popsicle with 2 sticks stuck together. 6 out of 10. Unicycle. This is just a regular popsicle. 5 out of 10. Cinnamon bunny. I already love cinnamon rolls to begin with, but a cinnamon roll that's shaped like a bunny? 8 out of 10. Astronaut food. I've never actually tried astronaut food in real life, but it does sound interesting. 7 out of 10. Crab apple. I'm actually really digging these foods that are in the shape of animals. Too bad apples aren't that high on my favorite foods list. 5 out of 10. Sea tea. The water is apparently made out of glowing marsh water, which is disgusting. I'm also not a tea person because coffee is king. It's cool that it glows though. 3 out of 10. Abandoned quiche. Now, quiche to begin with is actually pretty decent in my opinion, but it's stated that this quiche is psychologically damaged, which confuses me immensely. Does this imply that all foods in the game can feel emotion in some way, or maybe the quiche itself is sentient? I don't know, but that raises some weird implications. Still, quiche is quiche. 6 out of 10. Timmy flakes. It's just torn up colored construction paper. It's not the worst thing on this list, and it's a lot more appetizing than the liquid spiders or the snail pie. I remember when I was younger, I used to watch this video non-stop about a commercial for Timmy flakes. And I don't know if watching it on repeat has brainwashed me, but there's just something weirdly appetizing about them. 5 out of 10. Dog salad. According to the flavor text, it apparently contains bones, fried tennis balls, and literal garbage. Yeah, I'm okay. 1 out of 10. Instant noodles. I'm someone who finds instant noodles pretty enjoyable. They aren't my favorite thing in the world, but they're still pretty great. And no, they are not better dry. I know the genocide run is supposed to send players the message that killing is wrong and there's consequences for your actions, but the real message it's trying to send is that anyone who enjoys instant noodles dry are psycho murderers. And if there's anyone watching this video who likes instant noodles dry, please don't go after me. 7 out of 10. Hot dog. Normally I find hot dogs pretty good, but the way the description says meat, quote unquote, implies that hot dogs aren't actually made of meat, and are instead made out of whatever the hell water sausages are. And if this water sausage is what I'm thinking it is, 2 out of 10. Hot cat. Same as the dubious hot dogs, but instead it has cat ears on it, and hey, the extra addition gives it some more credit. 3 out of 10. Junk food. It is literally just garbage. If you were to eat this, you would be eating garbage. How does this thing heal 17 HP? 1 out of 10. Hush Puppy. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to be ranked. The flavor text describes it as a spell that prevents dogs from casting magic. Despite that, it still heals the player, making it a consumable. I think this could be a reference to the food Hush Puppies, which are just fried dough balls, and you know that I love balls. 8 out of 10. Starfait. This actually looks really delicious. Parfaits are already pretty good on their own, but this one is made out of stars. I mean, who wouldn't want to eat a star? 9 out of 10. Glamburger. My enjoyment of hamburgers has actually lessened throughout the year, and I don't think one made out of edible glitter and sequins is going to help me like them again. 4 out of 10. Legendary Hero. I'm a pretty big sandwich guy. Sandwiches are pretty awesome, and the fact that it's in the shape of a sword, something else I also really like, makes it even better. 9 out of 10. Face steak. I adore steak and would have probably ranked this as a solid 10 if it wasn't for the fact that it's not actually made out of real meat. That does actually seem pretty understandable though, because the underground doesn't actually contain any livestock, so there's no possible way they can actually get meat. But wait, if there isn't any livestock, that means there's no milk, and if they don't have any milk, how did they get ice cream? 6 out of 10. Potato chips. They're stated to be regular old potato chips, just spelled weirdly. Potato chips aren't my favorite thing in the world, but they're decent if I'm hungry. 7 out of 10. Bad memory. This is something that can only be speculated on, but because of the name Bad Memory and the fact that it can damage the player, I feel like if you took a bite out of one, a cringy memory resurfaces, like the time you tell a joke in the middle of class and no one laughs. Yeah, I'm okay with not consuming this one. 1 out of 10. Last dream. They're described as the goal of determination, which probably means that these last dreams are the reason why an individual's determination even exists. So, in theory, eating one will probably give someone an excessive amount of determination, and God knows I need that right now because school has been rough. 8 out of 10. Puppy dough ice cream. If you've never heard of this item, then I don't blame you. It was an item that was cut from the game, but I'm still adding it because why not? It's still food with a decent enough description for me to rate. The rest of the foods listed will be cut items as well. Now, I'm going to assume that the ice cream was made by the dogs and not from dogs because of what the flavor text says, but even so. I love dogs, but I don't think letting them make my ice cream is very sanitary. Who knows, it might even taste decent. 5 out of 10. Pumpkin rings. They're essentially just onion rings, but in pumpkin form. I'm already not a big fan of onion rings, and the thought of a deep fried pumpkin doesn't seem that appetizing to me. But I do think it being ring-shaped is still pretty neat. 4 out of 10. Rock candy. It is just a rock. The steps to making rock candy are to literally find a rock and then eat it. The worst part was I've actually tried this before. I wasn't the smartest person when I was 7. 1 out of 10. Croquet roll. You just eat fried dough, and you also get a mallet to go along with it. And I'm not the biggest fan of fried dough, but I do like mallets. 7 out of 10. Ghost fruit. I'm actually confused on how this one would work. It's a fruit that at the same time is a ghost. Ghosts can't actually be touched, so does it mean it'll go right through you? At the same time, it does heal you though. This also ties back into the theory that all food in Undertale is sentient, which would be horrifying. 3 out of 10. Stoic onion. Like I said before, I'm not really a big onion person, despite all of its complex layers. Maybe if I was taller, green, and had a Scottish accent, I'd enjoy them more. 2 out of 10. Alright, so that was all the food in Undertale rated. If you want to know the average scores of the food in each area, the Ruins had an average score of 4, Snowdin had an average of 6.4, Waterfall had an average of 4.5, and the Hotlands had an average of 5.2. Meaning that out of all the locations in Undertale, Snowdin has my favorite food. Now, if you do the math and find out I'm wrong, I'm doing the math on a calculator at 1 in the morning. But what about you? Leave a comment below or make your own video ranking these foods, and thanks for watching mine. Alright, imagine that you were walking across the street one day and you were suddenly hit by a truck. When you woke up, you were transported to the Undertale world as a monster. You now have to spend the rest of your life in the underground, or until a human child comes through and frees or murders everyone, whichever comes first. But while you wait for that to happen, you need to find a place to live, and there's quite a few options to choose from. So today, I'll be analyzing every place to live in the underground and listing off the perks and flaws if you choose to live there. There's gonna be quite a few things I'll be going into when I analyze each location, like food, population, entertainment, and a lot of other things. Now, I'll do my best to be unbiased in my analysis, and will give my preference at the end. If you want, leave a comment below on where you'd want to live if you're a monster in the underground. And without further ado, let's get going. Alright, first location we've got is the Ruins. Now, the Ruins are pretty darn spacious, with plenty of areas that could make good potential homes, and although we don't enter any of them, the room where the player finds the toy knife has a backdrop filled with castle-like structures showing that the Ruins are extremely massive. The inhabitants of the Ruins are pretty diverse as well, with froggits, luxes, sentient rocks, and many more. The Ruins are also the home of Toriel, so if you're a big fan of her, the Ruins would be a pretty great place to stay. The food is also pretty diverse, with items like monster candy and spider donuts, not to mention the iconic butterscotch and cinnamon pie, or the snail pie if you're into that sort of thing. Although the Ruins do have pretty interesting locations and people, there are a few cons with living there. For one, there isn't that much entertainment in the Ruins besides maybe the books in Toriel's home or crinkling in leaves. Another negative is how dangerous the place is as a whole. There are quite a large number of spike traps, hidden pits, and bodies of water that could potentially harm its inhabitants. Not to mention, many of the massive pillars spread across the Ruins appear cracked and broken, potentially causing an accident. A very prominent negative about the Ruins is that unlike every other area in the game, you cannot travel to the other locations due to Toriel locking the gateway, meaning that if you want to leave at any time, you would never be able to come back. Overall, the Ruins would be a pretty nice place to live if you're fond of the people, but quite dreary and boring if you're the kind of person who seeks entertainment. Snowdin is certainly an interesting choice to make a home, as obviously the entire place is going to be extremely cold, with the entire area covered head to toe in snow. Safety-wise, the area does have some danger with the slippery ice, alongside the potential to fall off the cliffside or an icy cold lake. Although those things do sound pretty bad, there is a force residing in Snowdin that acts as its protectors. That force being the Royal Guard's Canine Unit. Dogs are used frequently to track people lost or buried under snow, and due to the large number of these guard dogs, the risk of getting into danger is lessened. What this place has that a lot of others don't is a central location where a majority of the community resides, that being Snowdin Town. Snowdin Town quite possibly has the largest monster population seen in the game. Snowdin Town even has a large number of interesting buildings like the inn, shop, Grillby's, and library that's spelled wrong. The food options in Snowdin are also incredibly diverse, with food like ice cream, bunny-like pastries, and fast food items like burgers. I am not counting papyrus spaghetti as food because it is canonically inedible. Entertainment is very odd within Snowdin. Although there are dogs that play poker and several word-related puzzles found in newspapers, the real main source of Snowdin's entertainment are Sans and Papyrus. According to the Snowdin shopkeeper, the two brothers just showed up one day, and because of that, the town's gotten a lot more interesting. Overall, Snowdin is a pretty cozy and interesting place to live, but if you're someone who dislikes the cold, perhaps another location would be more appealing. Waterfall has plenty of areas for living space, alongside the largest amount of water found within the underground. It's a pretty nice place for those who enjoy rainy weather. There isn't too many dangers found within Waterfall, the only ones really being cliff sides and falling rocks. And even if you were to get into any danger, Waterfall is also the home of the Royal Guard Captain Undyne, so any risk of serious trouble would be quite low with her around, until her house burns down and she leaves. Although Snowdin probably has the largest visible population in the underground, Waterfall is a very close second with monsters like the Temmies, Shiren, Napstablook, and a giant onion squid guy, and many more. Food-wise, Waterfall has glowing tea, apples in the shape of crabs, and astronaut food. Not to mention actual edible spaghetti thanks to Undyne. Waterfall is no short of entertainment too. There's Thundersnail racing, which is just extremely slow horse racing. There's Shiren, who you can sing with, a piano, and the Echo Flowers, not to mention a lot more. I know I said I didn't want to be biased, but the part of Waterfall where you can see the castle in the far distance is probably my favorite area in the whole game. It's genuinely really beautiful. Now, although Waterfall has many pros, there's a pretty significant con about living in this area, and that is there are some parts that are way too dark for you to see in. This darkness could cause navigation to be pretty difficult and could cause frustration. This can be seen in-game where many characters are shrouded in darkness. Overall, if you want a place to call home within the underground, Waterfall isn't a bad choice. Hotland, much like the name suggests, is an incredibly warm area of the underground, probably because the entire area sits on top of lava. The lava itself could be potentially dangerous if it wasn't for the royal scientist Alphys, who lives in the Hotlands. There is no chance of anyone falling into the lava as she's created a large number of invisible barriers and floors as a way of protecting its inhabitants. Despite the lava not being too much of an issue, this is still probably the most dangerous place for a monster to live. The massive number of steam platforms across Hotland could potentially cause an accident, alongside the massive amount of lasers that surround the area. Although the area does have two royal guards who keep the peace, there is still the risk of getting eaten alive by a large spider lady who owns a giant cupcake spider monster. Despite all the danger, there are a large and diverse number of people who reside in Hotland, like the Vulcans, Pyropes, Tsundere, airplanes, and many more. Hotland is also the most technologically advanced area in the game, with all of its elevators and high-tech equipment. There are plenty of locations in Hotland, from the core, MGT Resort, Alphys' lab, and the one we don't talk about. Although it's never shown, there is also implied to be a school within Hotland, which is also very interesting. The food within Hotland is very interesting too, with the most variety out of anywhere in the underground, with its dubious hot dogs, spider-related foods, Mettaton brand foods, and literal garbage. Speaking of Mettaton, Hotland probably has the best entertainment in the underground with Mettaton, who has a massive variety of TV shows like cooking ones, news ones, and musicals. If you don't like Mettaton related TV shows, however, you can always hang out with the anime-obsessed lizard. Overall, Hotland, although very dangerous, is probably the most entertaining location in the underground. The only issue, however, is there's no places shown that can be suitable for residing in, besides MTT Resort and Alphys' lab. If I was a monster living in Hotland, where would I sleep? Not there. New Home is a location in the underground we know the least about. We know that Asgore and a large group of monsters moved from the ruins to get closer to the barrier and establish New Home as the capital of the underground. We also know that New Home holds a massive aquarium that's overpopulated. But besides that, everything else we know can be seen in-game. Much like the ruins, New Home has a massive number of buildings that can be seen in the backdrop, which makes looking for a place to reside incredibly easy. The monsters who all live in New Home seem to be more enlightened and sophisticated than others, like how Final Frogget, a resident of New Home, is a lot more refined than its ruin counterpart. This could imply that all monsters in New Home become greater over time, like how Pokemon evolve, but that's just speculation. There are some elevators within New Home signifying some technological advancements, but food options are unknown. The only thing that is potentially food related is the golden flower tea Asgore loves to make. Overall, New Home is an incredibly beautiful and massive place to live, but everything about it is shrouded in mystery and could use some expansion. Alright, that's every location in Undertale analyzed if you were to live in the underground. Now, if I was a monster living in the underground, I would live in the waterfall. Not only am I a rain person, but it's sandwiched right between Hotland and Snowdin. Two places I like, making traveling across the three a lot easier depending on where I wanted to go. Now, after all that, leave a comment below telling me where you'd want to live if you were a monster in the underground, and I'll see you all later. Alright, it's no secret that Undertale has some phenomenal music. In fact, I don't think I can name a single song from the game I'd consider bad. Now, although everyone can probably agree that Undertale has some top-notch music, the answer of which song is the best is incredibly split. You've got people who love Megalovania, Bone Trozzle, Battle Against a True Hero, and many more. But, in my opinion, It's Raining Somewhere Else is the best song in Undertale. Now, I know that might be a surprise to some due to it being one of the less popular songs in a list full of bangers, but to me, it truly beats out every other. Now, I'm no music expert. Heck, my only musical experience was a year's worth of piano, and because of this, I can't give any technical or professional explanations for why it's the best. But I can give you my subjective from the heart reasoning on why I believe this song is, in my opinion, the best song in Undertale. Now, of course, this is strictly subjective, and if you think any song is better than this, that's okay. At the end of the day, everyone has their own opinions, and now, without further ado, let's get started. To understand my reasoning for why It's Raining Somewhere Else is the best song to me, we have to go back a bit. The year was 2015, and I had just come back home from watching a movie with my family, and I needed something to do, so I decided to hop on YouTube, and that's when I saw it. A video playthrough of Undertale. I started watching, and, well, I didn't really care for it. I only watched a bit of the video before I got sidetracked and forgot about it. But afterward, on New Year's Eve, I remember seeing my older cousin watching Jacksepticeye's Undertale Genocide run, and I decided to watch it with him. Needless to say, I was a bit weirded out by it, because it was the episode where he keeps dying to Sans, and because I knew nothing about the game, I thought that every enemy in the game was just an extremely hard boss. After the video ended, I asked my cousin about the game, and he explained it to me a bit. A game where your choices matter sounded so bizarre to me, and I had to check it out for myself. From that point on, I was hooked. I remember watching my cousins play the game. I remember those animated shorts compilations on YouTube. Hell, I even remember the first time I ever watched that Sans Steven Universe parody. Needless to say, I became a pretty big Undertale nut, even getting a large portion of my friends to check it out for themselves. But despite all the things I loved about Undertale, I never once played it at that time. I never got to experience the journey for myself, and I never got to fully embrace the world of Undertale from my own perspective. I was just an outsider looking in. That was until the spring of 2016. My relatives came over for spring break, and that same cousin brought over his laptop. And on that laptop was his playthrough of Undertale. After watching him play for a few minutes, he asked me if I wanted to play it for myself, and of course, I said yes. After creating a new Steam account and game sharing, I finally got to experience the game for myself. And despite being terrible at it, I just had a ton of fun meeting all the characters and experiencing the story for myself. It was non-stop fun throughout, and I loved each and every character. except for Undyne because her battle took me like 10 tries. And yes, I know the pacifist run fight is easy, but I was 10 at the time, so cut me some slack. When I reached the scene where you have dinner with Sans at the MTT resort, and after the first few notes of that piano played, I had this weird sort of melancholy feeling in my chest when I heard it. After the scene ended, I finished my true pacifist run, and it was pretty amazing. After that fun, exciting, and emotional journey, I just stopped. As an emotional 10-year-old boy, when Flowey appeared at the end to tell me that if I reset the world, I'd essentially be destroying the happiness of every character, every friend I made along the way, I was crushed, and I closed the game and never touched it again. That was until... It was about a year and a half since I touched Undertale, and at that point, I was starting my 6th grade year at the time. Now, I made a lot of different friends throughout the span of that first year, and it was pretty great. It wasn't until around the end of the year, however, when a couple of my friends told me they were getting into Undertale and were struggling a bit on a couple of different bosses. As someone who used to love that game, I began helping them out a bit with the attack patterns and methods to beat the bosses, and essentially became a guide of sorts when my friends were struggling at the game. Because of my involvement in the game once again, that spark of enjoyment ignited in my heart, and my love for Undertale returned. But after about a year and a half, my friends' interest in the game kinda died down, and so did mine. Within that time span, however, I had forgotten about Flowey's words and started up a new Undertale save file, playing Pacifist once again. I enjoyed my playthrough despite it being my second time, but when I got to that dinner scene with Sans and those piano notes hit once again, that melancholy feeling in my chest when I heard it stung even more than my first playthrough. But at that point, however, I didn't know why. Nevertheless, I finished the game once again, enjoying every second, and soon forgot about it. Eventually, as my middle school years flew by, friends left, teachers were replaced, and the difficulty of schoolwork increased. But throughout it all, I kept moving forward. Things were looking good for me until... When the pandemic hit, I wasn't initially too bothered. Although I was bummed not to see my friends again, I was pretty happy not waking up early to catch the bus, and everything was alright. That wasn't until the days became monotonous and repetitive. I was starting my freshman year at that time, and every single day was the same. Wake up, sit in the same spot, and listen to the teacher's lecture. The schoolwork I had to do mixed with the lack of being able to interact with my friends due to being stuck in our homes caused my stress levels to rise exponentially. All that stress ended up causing me to have insomnia. I would spend hours upon hours trying to force myself to fall asleep, resulting in me being groggy and exhausted when the school day started. To try and prevent this, I made a music playlist filled with songs to try to get me to relax and sleep. When the sound of rain filled my ears and those first few piano notes echoed out, it caused me to begin thinking. I thought about whether or not I could ever see my friends again. I thought about how much the world changed because of this pandemic. Although the insomnia eventually stopped, I still had the habit of listening to music before I slept. The music did relax me, but when It's Raining Somewhere Else began to play, it allowed me to reflect on my day, and helped me analyze and adjust mistakes, and ultimately made me strive to become a better person. For some odd, unexplained reason, that song made me want to be better and improve. Although I already had a great amount of love for this song, something down the road made me love it even more, to the point of making it the best Undertale song in my heart. For some odd, unexplained reason, during the summer right before my junior year, something inside me just stopped. Happiness was a lot harder for me to find. The only things that really made me feel any joy were spending time with my friends. For some odd reason, I just felt empty and anxious all the time. At this time, my Undertale Power tier list blew up, sparking my interest in the series once again. So a couple months ago, I decided to play it. Overall, it was still an enjoyable time with the characters, jokes, and fights still being interesting after all these years. And then we get to the scene. The black screen fades out, with Frisk and Sans sitting at that familiar restaurant table. That beautiful piano begins to play, and everything is pretty standard in my eyes. That is until Sans says this. "So, Your journey's almost over, huh? You must really want to go home. Hey, I know the feeling, buddo. Though, maybe sometimes it's better to take what's given to you. Down here, you've already got food, drink, friends. Is what you really have to do worth it? Oh, forget it. I'm rooting for you, kid. Those words, ones that I've previously looked over, hit me hard. That melancholy feeling I had when the song played in the game was the same that I felt during my junior year. Those feelings I had inside, they weren't random. In truth, I was scared. I think I realized deep inside myself that my high school journey was almost over, and I was sad, fearful of what's to come right after. The change. I felt as if I was not ready or prepared enough to deal with what came next. To me, college was a terrifying mountain that I would have to traverse. It's how I felt when I first played Undertale. It's the melancholy realization that all the fun, joy, and emotion you felt during that part of your life was coming to a close. Paving the way for something you know nothing about truly makes it painful. But the part where San says, "Is what you have to do really worth it?" made me realize, yes. By taking that step forward, completing your journey, and starting a new chapter in your life, it is truly worth it. You can't stay in your bubble forever. You can't live in fear of what's to come in the future because no matter what, you can handle it. Sure, not every step in completing your journey is going to be easy. Heck, look at the abomination Frisk had to fight. But in the end, sure. Frisk may have food, drink, and friends in the underground, but their journey would have never ended. They would have never completed what they set out to do, and all of monster kind would still be stuck underground if Frisk stayed. Much like Frisk, you have to continue your journey no matter how scared you are of the future. You have to push forward. You have to see your journey to the end so a new one can unfold. And that's what It's Raining Somewhere Else has made me realize. I shouldn't be scared of what's to come in the future. Sure, sometimes I wonder if it's really worth it to set out, away from my friends. And yes, I'm scared to leave my family for college, but I know that although my high school journey is almost over, I don't need to live in fear of change. Because of everything it did for me emotionally and mentally, I truly believe that in my heart and in my soul that It's Raining Somewhere Else is the best song in Undertale. Alright, this was an odd one to make. I put a lot more heart and soul into this one than a lot of my other videos, and I know this one is a little weird, but thank you so much for watching. I'm aware that I hardly show any emotion other than monotony, but making videos like this really makes me feel good. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next. Now, if you've taken a look at more than one of my videos, you'll know that a majority of my content is Undertale, Roblox, and role-playing videos. Now, these three things are like the holy trinity of my channel, and if you're wondering whether or not I just essentially called my Undertale, Roblox, and RP videos God, I'm just gonna say no because I know some of my school administrators watch my videos, and I am not gonna get kicked out my senior year. Anyways, like I said before, those three things are like the cornerstones of my channel, and I love them all. But while I was thinking of video ideas, I got to thinking, is there a way to combine all three? Well, the answer to that is surprisingly yes. I remembered that when I was younger, I actually loved to roleplay in Undertale-themed Roblox games, and today I wanted to talk to you all about some of my wacky little adventures while in the world of Undertale. Now, if you're wondering why I did this, I think everyone at some point in their Undertale phase wondered what would happen if they actually were in the game and interacted with the characters, and not being stuck in the confines of an emotionless, non-binary child. If you were a kid and learned that there was some way you could actually talk to your favorite Undertale characters, you'd be hooked too. Anyways, I went on too much of a tangent. Without further ado, let's get started. Now, for some reason, these memories of my time role-playing in Undertale were suppressed in my mind, so some of these events are a little hazy. Probably because I thought that they were so cringy I couldn't bear to remember them, but now that a majority of my videos go into my cringy childhood, I don't need to keep them hidden. Anyways, with any role player comes a character that they, well, roleplay as. Nowadays, when I play characters in a roleplay game, they're either comically evil or cranky old men. Back then, however, well, you know that meme about Roblox roleplayers where it shows how long and idiotic their names are, like Jake/17/half demon/half human/half angel and crap like that? Yeah, well, that was literally me, and I actually named my character Jake. He was only a human, thank God, and had blue spiky hair, a blue hoodie, glasses, and jeans. Now, as for a personality, Jake didn't really have one because he was essentially just a self-insert. He was an avid pacifist because I was obsessed with the pacifist run and never hit back, except when he did, but I'll get to that later. Anyways, the Roblox game I played was called Checho's Undertale RP, and after falling and traveling throughout the underground, Jake came across everyone's favorite character, Papyrus. After realizing that I was human, Papyrus decides to attack and capture me. Now, Undertale roleplayers weren't always 100% accurate to the characters' personalities, and this Papyrus roleplayer was a little more brutal than usual. Because I was against just saying dodges, Papyrus ended up just brutalizing me, slamming me into sharp bones, impaling me, and even using a freaking gaster blaster. Yeah, like I said, not accurate. Anyways, I end up getting obliterated and I was at low health. But still, I wasn't fighting back, because pacifism. Yay! Anyways, I was about to get killed until another human came in and just decked him. This dude was named Damien, and I still don't know how I remember that. Anyways, after getting simultaneously beaten and insulted by Damien, Papyrus just looked at me and said he wanted to be my friend. So yeah, that's how I became friends with Papyrus. Someone literally beat the friendship into him. Anyways, later on after this incident, Jake decided to move into Snowden Town and took up residence in Sans and Papyrus's house. Now, in this game and every other Undertale RP game, every roleplayer seemed to just take up residence in Sans and Papyrus's house. No idea why, but anyways, Jake had a ton of roommates, including of course Sans and Papyrus, the annoying dog, multiple Sans and Papyrus AUs, a few humans, a Flowey who just lurked in the corner, and a couple more OCs who just kinda hung around. It was like 20 people all together in one place, and it was amazing. Now, while I was living in Sans and Papyrus's house, one of the other humans, Aqua or Crystal or something like that, came up to Jake and told him that she loved him. Now, to me, that was completely out of the blue, and in response to that, Jake screamed and ran away. So not much has really changed when it comes to my love life. Anyways, this act of rejection caused the girl to cry and run away, and what I forgot to mention about this human was that she was good friends with one of the other house's residents, Undertale Papyrus, and every Fel Papyrus roleplayer made him act as a violent maniac. So anyways, he goes up to Jake and grabs him by the throat and raises him into the air. Now, this was early in my roleplaying career, and I thought that losing a character was the end of the world, so I did something that completely went against Jake's character. I fought back. Jake ended up punching Fel Papyrus, and when I roleplayed the action, I expected Fel to just get stunned and drop me. Nope, turns out the force of my punch caused his head to fly off his body. Anyways, as his body was turning to dust, Fel Papyrus vowed revenge, and from that death, nothing happened. Like, it just went nowhere. Anyways, later on, and this will be the last story of the video, Jake ended up getting a job at Grillby's because he wanted to pay Sans and Papyrus rent. Now, as Jake was serving customers, Error Sans ended up entering the diner. Now, Error begins to cause problems and ends up vandalizing the diner, and in response to this, Jake decides to punch him directly in the face. Yeah, I was really committed to this pacifist thing. Anyways, I ended up running and getting chased by Error until I reached Sans and Papyrus's house. Anyways, when I got inside, the residents of the house were willing to defend me, and a battle between Error and the house dwellers began. Now, I don't know how strong Error is, but the guy playing him was tearing through most of the residents, and what made things even more chaotic was the Flowey roleplayer was constantly trying to go against us, and ended up breaking through the wall in his Omega Flowey form and joining the fight. A couple more Sans variants like Killer and Reaper ended up joining the fight, and an all-out brawl ensued. As the chaos erupted throughout the house, I decided to bravely run away. I'm a pacifist after all, there's nothing I could have done. Anyways, those are just a few of the stories during my time as an Undertale roleplayer. If you want to hear more stories, I'll probably make more of these kinds of videos, I'm not really sure. Anyways, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next. Now that I've started my senior year in high school, there's quite a few things I'm dreading once it's time to graduate. Which colleges I'll be going to, where I'm gonna live, and most of all, what kind of roommates I'll have. See, I'm an only child, and I've never really had to deal with any kind of roommate whatsoever, so the thought of having to share a space with some random person makes me a little nervous. While I was having these kinds of fears, I was simultaneously thinking of video ideas, and after putting those thoughts together, I came up with a neat little video idea. How good would the main characters of Undertale be as roommates? Now we have seen the daily lives of many of these characters, if not all of them, so today I'll be ranking the main cast of Undertale as roommates from worst to best. Now this is all going to be my personal opinion of what I'm looking for in a roommate, so your list could be a lot different than mine, and if it is, leave a comment below on your personal ranking. Also, Frisk will not be included because they are literally just you. One more thing, this isn't a setting where all the monsters are free from the underground and don't have their human hatred holding them back. Anyways, without further delay, let's get started.
Well, guess what, punk? I'm a fish. With legs.
Now, Undyne, despite being at the bottom of the list, wouldn't be a horrible roommate to me. If you're not an enemy, she's pretty nice, and is a person who can hold a decent conversation. Not only that, but she's able to cook, and as a person who's only mastered the art of toast making, that's a pretty big positive. The only issue is that her negatives far outweigh the positives. For one, she's extremely into roughhousing, and I don't know if you'd count that as a positive or not, but I'm not trying to fight someone who can suplex a boulder. Not only that, but we've seen what happens when she gets too intense. Her incredibly destructive personality when she's enraged combined with her short temper makes Undyne my last pick when it comes to a roommate. At least her dedicated and hardworking personality would have her out of the house for a pretty long time.
Maybe it's the way you're dressed.
Oh, Sans. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that Undyne could potentially obliterate your home, Sans would be at the bottom. He's a tired, lazy, nihilistic little guy, and he's constantly leaving his dirty laundry around and won't pick it up. Not to mention, if something unfortunate happens to you, he has that trombone on standby to make your predicament a little more comical. For him, not you. Despite his lazy nature, he's a pretty decent and friendly guy. At least he won't completely destroy your living space like a certain fish person.
Joke's on you, I'm into that shit!
Now, out of the main cast in Undertale, Papyrus is my favorite. His jolly, upbeat personality is something I can really relate to, and yes, I'm a happy person. I just sound sad because I don't like recording my voice alone. Papyrus has a lot of good qualities when it comes to a roommate. For one, he's quite responsible, keeping most of his stuff stored in his own room. He also tries his absolute hardest to be a good host, to the point of losing feeling in his legs. This means having people over would be quite easy. When it comes to garbage and dirty laundry, he's very keen on keeping his living space clean. This can be seen when he sent a series of notes to his brother demanding he cleans up his socks, and despite a constant back and forth, Papyrus never picks up the sock himself because he isn't a pushover. Anyways, there are a lot of positives to our favorite skeleton, but there's quite a few downsides as well. For one, he's a horrible chef despite his passion for it, meaning that the house could potentially become a fumigated mess. Also, he'd constantly be asking you to try his food, and that's just going to result in you getting food poisoning. Overall, Papyrus is a solid roommate, and like Undyne, his ambition for work would have him out of the house for a long period of time. Now, Alphys is certainly a weird case. Personality-wise, the three below her are people I'd probably get along more with, but the issues she brings are a lot less tame than the rest. For now, let's go over the positives. Alphys is a pretty smart cookie, and if asked, she can probably make you a lot of cool stuff. She also doesn't need to be cooked for because her diet consists of mainly instant noodles. She also has some interesting gadgets and machines littered all over her lab, something that could definitely be replicated in your living space. Now, like I said before, Alphys' personality is one that would make conversation extremely awkward. Now, I'm not going to count the true lab kerfuffle against her in this scenario, but there's a chance that she would keep secrets while living with you, and I am not going to count Mettaton as something Alphys brings along with her, because if she did, she would probably be at the bottom of the list. I'm sorry, I just don't like Mettaton too much. Asgore is definitely the character that would probably cause the most controversy on this whole list, and I know what you might be thinking. Koos, how is this self-hating child murderer this high up? He'd be a horrible roommate. To that I say, hear me out. In a setting where he doesn't have the weight of killing children and freeing his entire race from eternal imprisonment on his back, Asgore would be a pretty cool roommate. From what I can tell, besides his self-hatred and depression, Asgore's a jolly, kind, helpful pushover who would make for a great roommate and friend. For one, he's great at making tea, and because of his apparent solitude in his palace, he's probably capable of making decent food. I think my only issue with him is how many flowers he keeps around. Like, it's genuinely an absurd amount, but that's just a personal thing, and besides that, Asgore would be a pretty great roommate.
What? It was obvious!
Was there any surprise to this number one spot? There's a reason why Toriel has become one of the most iconic moms in gaming history. Kind, caring, protective, capable of making an amazing pie, Toriel would make an amazing roommate. Now, I know you're probably thinking about the fact she refused to let Frisk leave the ruins and keep them there forever, but that was because she knew Asgore would eventually kill them. And because we're taking out the danger of a child murderer from the equation, Toriel won't try to keep you confined in one place. And because of that, her compassion and genuine desire to have a family would make her the best Undertale roommate to me. Also, she wants to be a teacher and I could use a lot of help studying because I am terrible at it. Alright, well that has to do it with this video. To be honest, I'm really scared about my senior year and going off to college, but inside I know it's all gonna be okay. Anyways, leave a comment on the Undertale character you'd love to roommate with, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. Now, when I uploaded my first Undertale roommate video, I didn't expect it to blow up. Now, normally I'd like to separate my content out and post a variety of different things, but school's getting a bit crazy these past couple weeks, so I wanted to make something a little light. Anyways, if you haven't seen the first video yet, let me catch you up to speed. A few weeks ago, I ranked the main characters of Undertale on how good they would be as roommates. I went over their overall personalities, living conditions, and more. So today I'll just be doing the same with just more of the cast. By the way, this is just my opinion and all that, and if you have your own ranking, leave it in the comments. By the way, if you stay until the end, I'll combine this list and my first one into a giant single ranking. Anyways, without further ado, let's get started.
That's a wonderful idea.
Alright, now come on, who didn't see this one coming? Now, I remember there were a couple of you who said you wanted to have Flowey as a roommate, and to that I have to say, no thank you. Before anyone comes at me with their pitchforks raised, I am ranking Flowey and Asriel separately, and he will show up later on this list, don't you worry. Anyways, Flowey's definitely not going to be a good roommate. If I have to give him a positive, it's that he just takes up very little space, because he's a tiny little flower man. I mean, just look at him. Now, like I said in my last roommate video, the characters won't be hating humans because in this context they're all free, but I genuinely don't know about Flowey. Like, the other characters just end up becoming your friend despite initially hating you, but Flowey only ends up becoming kinda good after he absorbs the souls and becomes Asriel. He even states at the end of the game that he'll stop feeling love when he transforms back into Flowey, so yeah, I would not want a cold, emotion-deprived flower as a roommate, even if I could just put him in a cardboard box if he gets on my nerves. Now, just a heads up, Mad Dummy is not going to be on this list. Canonically, the Mad Dummy becomes Mew Mew, and she even replaces them in the True Pacifist credits. Anyways, Mew Mew is probably going to be an alright roommate. She isn't horrible. Kind of. Despite being your friend after fighting her, she still has that massive temper. Remember that previously all it took was you saying something to her dummy cousin for her to go ballistic and attack you with dummies, robots, and knives. I can definitely see Mew Mew getting mad at you for leaving the peanut butter jar on the kitchen counter and bursting into your room at 3 AM with a fire axe to yell at you. I don't know where that came from. Also, there's no way Mew Mew isn't going to become an e-girl. Like, come on. Overall, not the worst roommate, but I'm not going to get yelled at for breathing the wrong way. Onion-san is certainly a character I'd feel like I'd get along with really well. They're starving for conversation and I can't get enough of it. Now, despite Onion-san having a personality I can get along with, I have to take into account that they are freaking massive. Like, it's a giant onion squid thing. Where am I gonna fit them in my house? Now, you could suggest an aquarium or something like that, but there's no way you can afford something for such a big character. So unless you want to fill up your entire living area with water, I would not suggest rooming with Onion-san.
The giant enemy spider.
Muffet is a character that I've had a weird history with. No, I will not elaborate on that. As a roommate though, yeah, she's not that good. I mean, you have to know that she's probably gonna leave webs all over your home, and it's not even the type of spider web that you could easily clean up. No, you can straight up get trapped in that stuff. Also, it's heavily implied that she eats people. Like, seriously, look at it. She's totally gonna eat you if you sleep for a little too long. And if she's not the one eating people, it's her giant muffin spider dog thing that you know is just gonna run rampant through the house. Now, it isn't all that bad living with Muffet. She is able to cook, and sure, a majority of her food is made of spider bits, but that's okay, probably. I don't know if eating a spider is bad for you. Muffet is also an entrepreneur. She actually got someone to buy a donut that costs probably more than a house. Overall, Muffet is fine, just not my favorite. Kinda.
Oh, yes.
Oh boy, Mettaton. Now, I know that I said in my last video that Mettaton would be very low on my list, but to quote the big purple man upstairs,
Perhaps I treated you too harshly.
Mettaton is definitely the most fun roommate on this list. Like, it's never gonna be dull with him in the house. Sadly, that comes at the cost of property damage. Imagine you're just chilling in your room and then your roommate crashes through your wall and starts quizzing you on the most random things. Mettaton would also definitely be a Twitch streamer. Like, I don't know what he would do, but he's definitely gonna stream stuff. And he'd probably do it constantly because he's a robot and he probably has something built in so he can just do it. Anyways, despite being himself, Mettaton can do a lot of good. He's able to fly, act, become attractive, cook, and a lot more. Also, Mettaton is probably not going to be in the house that much considering he's a celebrity and would probably be out doing a lot of stuff. What did I say? Azrael is definitely a good option for a roommate. He's genuinely one of the kindest characters in the game, willing to sacrifice himself for the entirety of monster kind. He's willing to go along with your shenanigans for better or for worse, and he's definitely a friend you'd love to hang out with. Now, there's a downside to having Azrael as a roommate, and it's the fact that he's, well, a child. Like, you're gonna have to pay all the rent because I feel like he won't contribute anything to the finances. But if asked, he'd definitely do all the housework. Overall, like his parents, Azrael is a top tier option. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty obvious Napstablook was gonna be number one. I mean, come on. I saw the top comment on my last roommate ranking video. Napstablook is definitely a top tier option. Sure, they're depressed, gloomy, make bad music, that's subjective. But besides maybe some noise issues, Napstablook is definitely a really great pick. They're genuinely kind and considerate, and I don't really need a cook for them because all they eat is just ghost stuff. Now, you know I'm gonna have to mention the main reason why Napstablook is so high up, and it's because of the lying on the floor and feeling like trash sessions. God, that is so relatable. On that note, don't ask Kustopia what he does between 7:30 to 8 AM. Alright, well that was it for this ranking. I did say I was gonna go over my overall rankings in the end, so here it is. Number 13, Flowey. Number 12, Mew Mew. Number 11, Undyne. Number 10, Onion-san. Number 9, Muffet. Number 8, Sans. Number 7, Papyrus. Number 6, Alphys. Number 5, Mettaton. Number 4, Azrael. Number 3, Asgore. Number 2, Napstablook. And number 1, Toriel. Before we go, I'd just like to bring up a new segment on my videos called the Kustopia Corner. It's where I highlight fan art and other cool stuff people have made for me, and today's highlight is this fan art of one of my old Undertale roleplay characters, Jake, created by Boombank or Bruntastic. This is my first ever fan art and it's actually amazing, so thank you. If you ever want to send me fan art, you can send me an email through the one I sent in my channel description, or just go to my community tab and paste it in the comments of one of my posts. If you do that, I will feature you on one of my future videos, with full credit. Anyways, with that note, thank you all for watching and I will see you all in the next video.